Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. I see that I've met many of you in other workshop. You probably also have met Jacob, which is going to be our co-host today. If you haven't met me, hi, I'm Pietro. I'll be your co-host for today. I run an educational page on AI for non-technical people on LinkedIn and Substack, and I've been focused my entire career at the intersection between AI and growth. At the same time, Jacob is the real star today. He's the founder of Relay App, one of my favorite workflow app, and is also the former director of product management at Google. But Jacob, I'll let you introduce yourself with 2 words about Relay App before we get started with the topic of today.
Great. Nice to see you all. Don't worry, this is not going to be just an ad for Related App. Related App is just one tool in the AI agent building category. We can talk about others so you get a sense of the landscape. But I've basically spent my whole career working on AI-assisted productivity tools. My first startup was an AI-powered digital calendar, a digital calendar agent that helped you schedule your time. Then I spent several years at Google where I led the product team for Gmail, for Google Calendar, and for several other productivity and collaboration tools. And I've been working on Relay.app now for a little over 4 years, since before AI was cool. And the reason I'm so excited about this moment, which we'll talk about more in this session, is we can now shift our mindset from how we think about getting our work done. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we used to think about using tools to get our work done. I log into Google Docs and I write a document. I log into Webflow and I make a website. I go to a productivity tool and I do work there. And the AI-enhanced versions of productivity tools are awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love Gamma. I love Lovable. I love all of the versions where you're making a website or making a slide deck or doing analysis and using AI to help you do it. But that's not the big mental model change I'm talking about. The big mental model change I'm talking about is building an AI team that works for you day and night. They don't take holidays. They work all the time. They follow your instructions, and they give you a huge amount of leverage. And so the mental model I want you all to think about as you watch this session is, yes, we're going to show you a few very specific flowcharts and workflows for monitoring social media. But I really just want you to think about this. This is just one example of a task your AI teammate can do for you while you sleep. And my challenge to everyone here is by the end of 2026, every single one of you should have a team of AI agents working for you. With that, let's dive into the topic.
I remember, Jacob, the first time you gave me a similar speech to this one was approximately a year ago, and now I don't know how
and
many.
now it's time. I think we overpromised a little bit in 2025. We claimed that 2025 was the year of the agent. 2025 was really the year of the prompt with a little bit of workflow automation around it. But now you'll see with the advances in both AI models and AI agent building tools like ours, you can really interact with your AI agent in much the same way that you'd interact with a teammate. And we'll talk in the session about some of the limitations and some of the challenges, but that's the mental model you should start with.
Beautiful. So let's get started. Just to set the expectations straight, this will be a fast session. We'll go through a lot of concepts, and also the building section of this will be quite sped up, but you'll all have access to the recording. Will be sent to you after this chat, so you can go at your own pace. The session will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will give a quick introduction. Jacob will give a quick introduction to building AI agents, what are they good at, and what you can really expect from them in 2026, as of January 2026. Then we'll dive into a guided build where we're going to build social media monitoring tool, which will be working by the end of this session. We'll test it together, we'll review it, and then hopefully we'll have a long Q&A at the end, so you can ask all of the questions, whether they are related to this specific workflow which we will build, or in general to me or Jacob. You'll have all here a lot in common, so you can keep the chat going. The one between me and Jacob was not speaking at the time. We'll also try and respond to all of the questions. And you also have a Q&A section. If you want to leave the question, we'll dive into the Q&A at the end. Without further ado, Jacob, I have 2 questions here. They're interesting for everyone in this chat, but also for me, because things change so fast that in 2026, I think it's really important for non-technical operators to understand what they can achieve with no-code tools, which means without involving anybody technical, and what is in general AI good at and what is not good at.
Perfect. Let me share just a couple of slides.
Can you share over me? Let me stop it so you can share yours.
First, a very important caveat. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
A very important caveat is that I'm going to tell you what I've seen AI agents be good at as of January 22nd of 2026. If we do another session like this in 3 months, the answer will be different. But here's where I've succeeded and here's where I've not succeeded. Number 1, AI tools are excellent at structured processing of data. For example, if you have an email and you want to classify whether it needs a reply, if you have a lead and you need to figure out if they're qualified, if you're analyzing a social post and if you want to see if it was successful for that target audience, AI is excellent at classification. Similarly, AI is excellent at extraction, taking unstructured information out of unstructured data. You give it a PDF with an invoice and it'll pull out the amount and the due date and the vendor. You'll give it a web page of a team page of a company and it'll extract who the officers are in the company and what their email addresses are. And then third, I'm guessing everyone here has used AI for summarization already. You give it some long form piece of content and it gives you a condensed version of it. Processing data are often the simplest ways to get started with a high performing AI agent. Second, and Pietro has a bunch of good demonstrations about this that you'll see, AI is excellent at creating content. This has improved dramatically in the last year. AI has been decent at writing for a while. If you know how to give it good examples and you know how to give it good prompts, it can create things that are both really high quality in your voice and original and valuable. Again, it depends on the quality of your prompt, of course. AI has also recently gotten very good at creating audio, whether it's creating music using a tool like Suno, or creating a voiceover for a video using a tool like 11 Labs that can actually match and mirror your voice. And then finally, only in the last 2 or 3 months have I found AI to be really useful for image generation. AI has been hyped for image generation for at least a year, since like the DALL-E models from maybe a year and a half ago. For me, it was Gemini 3.0 Pro Nano Banana that really made image generation useful for me in terms of creating ads and webinar posters and annotated screenshots. But in general, anytime you think, oh, I wish I had a writer or a graphic designer or a sound editor, you can probably use AI to help you with that. And then last, AI. So the first example, certainly, you could think of this as work that like a junior assistant would do for you. You could think of this second class of work as work that like a specialized creative would do for you. With the third class of work, you can often think of this class of work where an AI is more experienced and in some ways more intelligent than you are. This is one of the big leaps for me in the last 2 months, to think of not AI as just a subservient, low-skill assistant, but as a super high-skill coach. AI can do research, AI can do analysis. You give it a spreadsheet of data and it will come up with very good observations of how the information is trending or what you want to do about it. You can give it large volumes of customer feedback data or interviews or research, and it'll synthesize them. And it can even coach you on your performance. For example, maybe Pietro and I will both put this webinar recording into our coach and it'll tell us how we could have delivered a more compelling webinar. So these are the things that I've seen AI be very good at. Quickly, let me tell you a few things that I haven't succeeded with AI yet. AI is limited in what data it can access behind paywalls and in systems that have policies that prohibit scraping. So in general, AI will be able to access anything that you could access in an incognito window. Like it can look at public LinkedIn posts, public TikTok posts, public Instagram posts, public websites. Anytime there's proprietary data hidden behind a login, your results may vary depending on what that service provider has offered. And particularly when we talk about growth use cases, we all want phone number data, LinkedIn profile data, views, impressions. Some of this stuff can be hard to get for policy reasons in particular. The second caveat I want to give about AI is large language models today are not very good at tasks that require comprehensiveness. So for example, if I go to ChatGPT right now and say, what are all the Mexican restaurants in San Francisco? I want all the Mexican restaurants in San Francisco. There's probably a couple hundred Mexican restaurants in San Francisco. What they'll say is, here's 5. Do these look right? And I'll be like, yeah, those 5 look good. Give me all of them. And then they'll say, oh, okay, all of them? Here's 3 more. But AI is large language models specifically are typically not an effective way to build a comprehensive list or a comprehensive understanding of something, even using a capability like deep research. So if you want to get a list of leads, you typically need to give the AI some other data source. Here are all the registered restaurants in San Francisco, and then it can do a pretty good job based on their names and their menus of classifying whether there's a Mexican restaurant. So those are the 2 primary caveats I've seen in agent building. Number 1, the agent can't succeed if it doesn't have access to the data it needs. And then number 2, it can't succeed if you ask it to do like a comprehensive or accounting of everything that exists in the world. That's just not what they're built for.
Beautiful. That's super helpful. And also, as Jacob said, this changes in 3 months, right? So I remember once you told me computer control wasn't great. Now with Claude, maybe your answer to that question has changed, right? So in 3 months, this ecosystem evolves.
Exactly. When I gave this presentation maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, I said, I don't think AI is reliable enough at using your browser or your computer to delegate significant tasks to it. My opinion on that has changed. There's still caveats to what Cloud Code can do and what computers can do, but it's now definitely possible.
Exactly. So diving into what the topic of today's session is, before getting to the actual build and we'll get our hands dirty and actually build the solution together, just a quick why is monitoring social media so important in today's world. We live in the era of social media and of the era of building in public. And given that you have this huge amount of information available, you can use social media, and you must, if you are in go-to-market or in commercial teams, to understand what your target audience is interested in, right? All of these signals, their interest is public, right? Because what they engage with, their likes, their comments, everything is public, right? So you can and have access to a ton of information about what they're actually interested in. And this can help you understand what messaging reasons with them and how this messaging evolves over time. Because things change so quickly that today a post that resonates with them might not be the same that resonates 3 months from now, because that post was, for example, about ChatGPT, and now Gemini 3 is out, right? So people are not interested anymore in that, right? This is just an example, and only if you're in the AI space, but it can be applied to almost every niche. And the third and most important reason maybe is you can keep tab not only on your audience, but also on your competitors. If you check your best competitor, the ones that are doing the best, you can most likely reverse engineer their entire strategy, positioning, messaging, where they're going, what their offer is, what they're aiming for, high-end clients or lower offers. You can reverse almost all of this from the huge amount of content that they put out, right? And this is true for any social media, right? So if you are into B2B SaaS, you're probably hanging out on LinkedIn. But if you are into, I don't know, B2C and product, this is true also for LinkedIn, for TikTok and Instagram, right? And all of this data are to some extent available. So without further ado, now this time, let's get to the building part, right? How this is going to work is most of you will already have a Relay app account. For those of you who don't have, just going to paste here a link, create an account. It's completely free. It takes you maybe 1 minute. While you go create the account, I will explain you what we're going to build. I will show you the end solution, so you have an idea what you're going to have at the end of this 20 minutes of building. And then we'll cancel what we have and start building it from zero, explaining you every step. At the end, we'll test it together and you'll have a working solution. If you're not familiar, if it's your first time building and you feel more comfortable just following along, you can also do that, and then you receive the recording of this session and you can build it after, right? So don't worry, you can also just follow along. If you have any question during the actual building session, please in the chat, Jacob, interact me anytime, help the people. If I go too fast, if I go too slow, please just let me know. Okay, so I'm just gonna change my screen. Stop sharing, give me a sec. Perfect. Can you see my screen now? If you can just put a reaction. Can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. I see it. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna exemplify this workflow for LinkedIn, but you can replicate, and I'll show you how for any social media which you're interested in, right? For TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, any of the largest platforms, let's say, right? What you're going to build is a workflow that every week on a scheduled trigger, on every Monday at 8 a.m., for example, will take a sample of the most relevant profile in your industry, which you have to select because every industry will have a relevant profile, different relevant profile. We'll take all of this profile, we'll extract all of the posts which they have done in the last 7 days for this reference player. All the relevant posts will be extracted, and then Gemini will go through all of the posts of the last week and will classify them by engagement, right? So it will select those posts that have received the highest engagement. You can arguably infer that those posts that receive the highest engagement are the one that resonates more with your target audience, right? In this case, we're extracting posts from LinkedIn, right? 1 week of posts from LinkedIn, but I can do it with LinkedIn using a simple other step here. For example, this is the same exact workflow, but instead of having LinkedIn post extracted, it has TikTok post extracted. And the little nuances here is whenever you change platform, the workflow, the general logic of the agent can remain the same. What changes is just the nuances about the platform. For example, on Twitter, you have impression. You can categorize the post by impression. On LinkedIn, you don't have impression, right? So you will characterize them and rank them by the number of engagement, the number of comments and likes they had, right? And on TikTok, the same, right? So you just have to be careful while you prompt this that you adapt it to the specific nuance of the platform which you are building it for. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna open a completely new tab here, okay? And we're gonna start building it from scratches. Again, so whenever you open Relay app, and by now you should all have an account. Again, if you don't wanna build, but just take a look, feel free to do it. You want to go to the plus here, right? Where it says create new, and you want to create a new workflow. Later in the demonstration, if I have time, Jacob will explain you the difference between a workflow and an agent, because it's a new feature which they're pushing out. But today, let's just focus on the simple unit so you can see the power of this, right? So if I go on the plus, click on workflow, we'll be prompted to create a completely new workflow, right? Every workflow starts with a trigger. A trigger is the alarm that tells the agent he has to wake up and do all of the tasks that follow, right? A trigger can be a scheduled trigger, like the one we will use in this specific flow. And it could be, for example, every Monday at 8 a.m., collect all of the posts. Or it can be, for example, email that you receive. Every time I receive an email with this subject, extract the invoice, right? The trigger is the alarm. For this specific workflow, we're going to select a scheduled trigger, and we're going to set it to repeat, when it says repeats here, weekly on Thursday, because today is Thursday. But if I change it and I put it on this Monday, weekly on Monday, this agent will wake up and perform all of the steps that we're going to define within this one. If I click done, I can start building the workflow. Now, to make it simpler for all of us, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add notes here. You don't have to do it. They don't impact how the workflow works. It's just easier for you to follow along. At the end of the session, I will also send all of this template for all of the social media, for LinkedIn, for TikTok, for X, so you can test them. So don't worry if you get lost. This is just to make it simpler for you to follow up. So the first thing which we are going to do and which we have to do is we have to insert our reference players, right? We want to give the agent the information about the players which we're interested in, right? You can't monitor the full spectrum of posts on a social media because that would consume a huge amount of AI credits, right? It would be incredibly expensive and also very slow. So what you do here, instead of crunching through all of the possible posts on a specific social media platform, you want to select only those relevant communities which are interesting for you, right? So how you do this, you just think, okay, what are the relevant reference profile in my industry? It could be, for example, your competitors, or it could be some relevant, the top 2 or top 3 relevant influencer in your space, right? You want to select those profiles that are followed by your ICP, by your ideal customer profile, and with which your ideal customer profile resonates. So how do we do this? We have to insert a table. And if you go down to, if you click on the plus to add a new step and go to utilities here and click on create a table of constant, it will prompt you to insert a table. Think of this as a Google Sheet or an Excel file included in Relay app. Super simple. You can add a column, and let's do it together. I'm going to add a column and say name of the competitor, and then I'm going to add another column and insert the profile URL. I'm also going to rename this table as reference profile. Also, don't worry about doing this polishing things. This is just so that it's clearer for you when you will receive this workflow, and it's clearer for you to follow. But you don't have to really do all of these steps once you're familiar with the platform. Let me add here a couple of profiles just to exemplify. We're going to add LinkedIn profile because we're testing these for LinkedIn specifically. So I'm going to add my profile just to make an example, and Jacob's profile to make another one. All right. I'm just pasting my name and the URL of my profile and of Jacob's profile. You can insert yours, for example, or anybody, right? We're just testing it. The important thing is that they have posts, right? Because here we're looking for people who actually post. So creators or active profiles. So what we have done, we have selected his profile, we have given this information to the agent. So every time he runs, he knows, okay, you have to go to this profile to see what type of post I want to monitor, what type of profile I want to monitor. The next step, and I'm going to add again a note. You don't have to do this. It's just to make it clearer. I'm going to add a note and it says extract post and select the most liked, right? So this is the heart. This is where we're going to have to build the core of this agent. And what we want to do is we want to go through all of the profile included in this table. It could be 2, like in this example, but it could be multiple. You can have as many as you want, right? I recommend keep it low, especially when you test it, and then increase if you see that it works well for your specific case, but you can include just as many as you want. So if I click on plus here and I add what it's called in Relay a loop over a list or an iterator, what this does, what the specific section of Relay does, it helps you go through list of things, right? So when you have list of profiles, so list of emails which you want to go through, and you want to go through each single one of them one by one, I want to go to the profile and extract the post from the first profile. I want to go to the second profile and extract the post from the second profile. Every time you want to do this iteration, this loop, you will select this specific section, right? And then whenever you insert a loop, you have to select the list you want to iterate, you want to loop through. In this case, we only have one list, which is the list which we call the reference profile. So this is the list which we want to select. When you insert an iterator like this one, you are prompted to insert steps within an iterator, right? If you see this box, he is slightly different from the background. So it tells you that everything that happens within that box is going to be object of the iteration, right? So for all of this profile included in table 2, we want to do 2 things. Number 1, we want to extract all of the posts out of that profile. In this case, as said, we're looking for LinkedIn, right? So I'm going to type LinkedIn and go to get LinkedIn person post. In this case, we selected a person, right? It's me and Jacob. So we want to select, again, you type LinkedIn in the bar. So you see all of the possible action which you can do through LinkedIn. They're all very clear, right? So if you just read through, you'll find it. Get LinkedIn person post, right? If I select that, I'm prompted to insert the profile which I want to go through, right? We have given already that to the agent, right? So if you click on here, select a URL, and you go to the only item which is available, reference profile, you find directly here profile URL. In this case, it's all very clear because we have one list of people and the only column available is the profile URL. So we select that. We want to select the most recent post, and we can give the maximum of posts which we want to extract. In this case, let's suppose people don't post on LinkedIn really more than once a week, but to be on the safe side, let's extract the last 10 posts. So we make sure that we get all of the posts that were posted within the last week. Because again, this workflow runs every Monday, right? So we want the posts from the last 7 days. And then if no posts are found, pause the run and send a notification. You can select whatever you want. You can also continue. In this case, I want to be noted because I'm sure both me and Jacob have posts, so it should really not do it. And then I click done and this setup is done, right? So what we have told them is go to LinkedIn. This is the URL. I provided it here in step 2. Extract the last 10 posts, most recent. Just to exemplify you, and I'll show you again at the end, if let's suppose we didn't include my LinkedIn profile and Jacob's LinkedIn profile, but we include our X profile, for example, right? Our Twitter profile. You can do the very same thing on Twitter, right? So instead of typing here LinkedIn, you type your Twitter and you see all of the action which you can do on Twitter. So for example, in this case, get more recent tweet for profile URL. We'll do the same exact thing, but for Twitter, right? So I know these people are active on Twitter. Let me extract the post on Twitter and find the one that works the best. And you can do the very same thing on Instagram. Wait, to go back, sorry. If you go back to the homepage and you type here Instagram, get Instagram post by URL. Same exact thing, but for Instagram. And then if you go to TikTok here, search for TikTok video, get TikTok videos by profile URL, right? So whatever social you are talking about, you have, and among the biggest one, let's say, you have an action to extract the key post, right? In this case, let's continue with the LinkedIn one. If you want to make a more complex flow, we don't have time within this session, but you can also include them all in the same work, right? It would be more complex. It would require a bit more of designing of the responsibility of this specific agentic workflow, but you can also do that, right? In this case, let's continue with only LinkedIn. Am I going too fast? Is everything up to speed? I see the chat is going. Stop me anytime, Jacob, if there's a question that requires me going.
I think the pacing is good. I'm keeping up with the chat, but maybe just give people like 1 minute to catch up to where you are now.
Yeah, and I see a question from Usain, which I think it's important. And it's the entire reason why I started using Relay is you don't need any technical setup, right? So all of this action, which I'm showing now, don't require any setup. So if you were building with me now, you'll see that to extract the post from LinkedIn, to extract the post on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, you don't require any sort of action, right? There's a built-in connection which the Relay team has with the end party provider or a data provider, right? So you don't have to do anything, right? You can literally set up this right after you log in, right? You don't have to create connection, talk about API. You don't even need to know what API are, really. Okay, so once we have extracted all of these posts, what we want to do is we want to create an AI step that crunches through all of these 10 posts, which we have extracted, and basically select the most successful one, right? So I'm going to go here, and you can either select summarize, or I always like to do custom because I always like to be generic, right? Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong. I always use custom unless it's really clear that I'm doing an extraction step. I prefer to go with custom so I can just give it a prompt for whatever I want to do.
Yep. If you're confident with prompting, like you consider yourself a kind of an expert user of ChatGPT, I indeed recommend using custom. If you're not an expert in ChatGPT, I might suggest using one of the top level AI steps like research, extract, summarize, write, because that will help the system know what you're trying to accomplish and pick the right model. So if I were using AI to write a report, I might use write, or if I was trying to extract the top post, I might use extract. But that's, if you know your way around a prompt, custom will give you the most control.
Perfect. So in this case, we're going to use custom because I'd show you the prompt. It's already built, right? But in general, if it's clear that you're making an extraction, go with that. So when we add an AI step, in this case, a prompt, one of the first things you can do is it will be automatically by default set to ChatGPT 5.2, which is the latest model by ChatGPT by OpenAI, but you can change it. Again, this doesn't require any integration. You can connect your own keys, but if you're non-technical and you don't want to, you can test all of the models out of the gate, right? So all of the major models, right? So for example, in this case, I prefer to run with Gemini because lately I'm absolutely obsessed with Gemini. I think it does a great job. So I'm going to select Gemini 3 Flash for this specific task. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste a prompt, which I already have ready. I will also later paste it in the chat so you guys have it. And I would just explain you the logic behind. It's a very simple prompt, so nothing complex here. I'm telling the AI that I want them to classify all LinkedIn posts in the attachment. And I can see here, there's that AI has access to the post which extracted in step 4. And I want them to classify by engagement, like, comments, etc. And publish date. From this, select the best performing post. So I'm only asking for one post. I could ask for more. I could ask for the top 3. In this case, since LinkedIn and the volume of posts that are left on LinkedIn over a week is not that high, I only want to see the best performing post, right? By total engagement. That must have been published within the last 7 days. When I extract the post, I can select, I want the last week, right? So you must tell the AI, okay, you have 10 posts. They might be all from the last week, but before telling me which is the best one, make sure that post has been done in the last 7 days, right? And then what I want is him to return the URL of this best performing post. And if no post qualify, return nothing. Okay. So the prompt is very simple. Let me actually paste it in the chat. So for those of you who are building with me, you can paste it in and continue with us. Once you create an AI step and you prompt an AI, you want to make sure in Relay, but in general, whenever you work with AI, that it has, number one, access to the right set of information, right? In this case, AI has access to the post, which is the only item it needs to have access to in this specific flow, right? By default, Relay automatically give access to the prompt to the previous step, right? So the previous step, we extracted the LinkedIn post. By default, it will be here. If you need to add something, you could do it here, right? So if I remove it and then I add it here, you see that now AI has access to it, right? So even if you were prompting directly in Gemini or in ChatGPT, you always need to make sure that it has access to the file, right? So if you mention a file, make sure to attach the file, right? And the second thing, which if you have done a new prompt course, or even if you have explored how to build prompt, you should always tell to the AI how you want the output format, right? So for example, in ChatGPT, this would be, okay, give me a prompt formatted in a list that has these headers. In Relay, you will automatically have, and you see the auto-generate toggled on here, what it believes to be the best possible output for this specific prompt. In this case, the output will be a URL of the post, right? But you can go and edit this. In this case, I want to also have in the output the author name, the name of the author, right? So if I wanted to do that, I would turn off auto-generate. And if you see, it appears here, the possibility to do add field. Let me show you again. By default, this will be turned on, right? If you wanted to edit this because you want a specific format, you can do it by turning auto-generate on, right? And then I want to insert another field, which I always want in the output. It will be a text field, and the name of the text field, it's going to be author name. Super simple, doesn't need anything else. So I will have in the output author name field, which I added manually, and the URL. Another way to do this, if you want to leave auto-generate on, and you tell him here, also include that in the prompt you insert here, also include in the output the name of the author, he will also do it, right? These are two ways of achieving the same result, right? So we have written the prompt, we have make sure that AI has access to the right set of information, and we have inserted the field that we want in the output. So we can click on done. We have finished the iterator step. So in this iterator, in this loop, we have gone through my profile, Jacob profile, any other profile which we want to add to this specific list, extracted the LinkedIn post, classified them, and selected the number one post of this specific week, right? Now the iterator is finished. So instead of writing within add to loop and clicking on this plus here, we're going to make sure to add a step outside the prompt, right? To make it even clearer, as always, I will insert a note here, and we're getting to the last step. In this last step, we're basically sending ourselves the result, right? I've showed you here a very basic version of this, in the sense you can be much more sophisticated in how you do the prompt, right? You can ask it, give me a base. I don't want any post which has under 100 or under 100 comment, right? You can classify and make the selection much more sophisticated. And you can also change the structure of the prompt. Again, we don't have time in this session, but if you are more familiar with building solution, you could create a workflow that compare the last post to the baseline of the profile, right? So compared to my last post, how does this perform? Is this an outlier for my profile, right? So this is just to say you can add a lot of sophistication. Here we're saying, give me the best of the week, right? But you could have, give me the best of the week, but only if it's over 100 engagement. This is the baseline engagement which we need for this post-op period, right? So let's conclude the workshop. Let's conclude the flow. The last step of this flow will be a step to send ourselves these two posts which we have selected, the posts that were given that were the result of this flow, right? How to do this? If you type send here and you look for the item send email to yourself, you will see that you can send this result to your own email. If you're more familiar and if you prefer to have it in Slack, you could also do it in Slack. Or if you prefer to receive a notification, you can. The simpler way to showcase how this works is to just have it via email, right? And whenever you select the step send email to yourself, you have to insert a subject, which is going to be the subject of the email which you will receive. In this case, I'm putting LinkedIn Monitor, best performing post of the last 7 days. And then I'm also going to add date of today. You can add a variable field here, current date, right? So you always know that if you then go look in your email for the result, you can look it by the email. And then I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to add to the body of the email, here are the best performing LinkedIn posts within the last 7 days selected during this workflow run. And then what I want to do is I want to insert the results of step 3. So the step 3, basically step 3 the result of sales trip was given by this tab, prompt Gemini 3 Flash. We could also rename it so it's easier. But we want this output, which is the URL of the post, and we want a bullet list, right? So for each item, for each single person that was included in the original table, in this case, it's going to be me and Jacob, I want to have the author name, then a semicolon, and then the URL of the best performing post, right? When you want to add and reference data, which were given in a previous step of this very simple flow, you can do by clicking here on the plus data on the top and the bottom right. And then you'll see that the only thing you can access here is the author name and URL of best performing post. Because just reminding you, these were the fields that we decided to have in the output. If you added more fields, you could select also out of those other fields. Okay, so the workflow is completed. Just to summarize, we gave the reference profile. Each single one of you will have different reference profile according to what it's important for you to track, who your competitor is, who the influencer your niche is. We extracted the post, in this case for LinkedIn, but we could do it also for any other platform. And then we've prompted Gemini to select the top one post. And then we've told the workflow, okay, once you finish this workflow every Monday at 8 a.m., send me an email with the results of this work, right? So let's test it. Let's just test it. Whenever you want to test a flow, you can click here on Start a Test Run and click on Start Now. Now you'll see here, it will run through. It's already going, already extracted the 10 posts, and now it's running the quick and simple prompt. While this run, I want to show you something really quickly.
Pietro, can you quickly show one more thing again?
Yep.
The step where you created the email body
Sí.
referencing the AI output of the AI step.
Yes, absolutely. So you go here, step 6, send email to yourself. You have inserted the subject as quick body. When you want to do this again and insert the results of the AI output, which in this case is output, it's step number 5. What you want to do is you want to click on this button, data, on the bottom right corner. When you click on button data, you can reference items present in the rest of the flow, right? In this case, we want to reference step 5, which is the output of the loop, right? So if I go here to the loop for each item in the reference list, and then I want to reference not the post, because the posts were the input. We want to reference the AI output, right? And we want to reference it in a bullet list, right? So we go through the steps. Every line of the list will have a bullet point, right? So if I click on that, you see we're just duplicating what we had up here. List each item in AI outputs of step number 5. This step, prompt Gemini 3 Flash as, and then if you want to reference specific data within step 5, within the output of step 5, you click on data, you click on AI response, and you click on author name, which is the first of the two outputs which we have. And then you do the same, but with the URL of best performing post, right? So we see that we have exactly replicated what we had above. I'm just going to cancel it because otherwise it would be twice. Does this clarify? I don't know who asked the question.
Yes, thanks. I think we're good.
Perfect. Okay, so we see that in the meantime, the workflow was completed. That here it extracted the 10 posts for each of the two profiles. For me, in this case, Pietro Montaldo, and then for Jacob, it completed these two tasks for the both of our profiles separately. For each of them, it has also selected the best performing post of this week. And then it should have sent an email to myself. Let me go check right now. Relay app notification, LinkedIn monitor, best performing post, received 2 minutes ago. And we see here at the best performing LinkedIn post within the last 7 days selected during this workflow run. Pietro Montaldo, and here let's go check if he did a good job. I did a post on prompts this week that was very good in terms of impression. Okay, so it selected the post about prompts, which I did this week, which had over 820,000 impressions. And for Jacob, it should have done the same, right? You tell us, Jacob, if this is the best performing. See, I think this was maybe the only post you did this week. So
yeah, I had a light week, so that was my best.
Okay, so this is the workflow. It worked well. I wanted to show you one more thing before we give you space to ask any question. Okay, I wanted to show you exactly this, right? I told you before that you could make it more sophisticated, right? You could monitor. This was a very basic thing just to show you the potential and also how easy it is to do this. But if you wanted to do the same, extracting the post from the last 7 days, and instead of just looking for the best of the week, I want to look for posts where reaction in terms of is greater than 100 or the number of comments is greater than 100, and you can play with these variables. And then you would like to add that to a very specific Google Sheet where you store all of these successful posts. Because, for example, you want to reuse them, right? You want to use them to give a tone to Gemini app or to create further content. You want to store all of those posts. You can also do it. You can monitor trends and store them, right? This is what you have shown is just a seed of what you can do. You can make this much more sophisticated and you can tailor it to, number one, the platform, the Instagram, all of them. And number two, your specific need. What are you looking for? Are you looking to create content or are you looking to look at what other people are creating? And that closes
Can I
it.
suggest one more quick thing to show? First, thanks for this awesome demo. I still see a couple people in the chat getting tripped up about the composition of the email. So I want to show an alternative way. Can you go into your send email to yourself step and get rid of the reference to the
everything?
Yeah. Now, instead of doing it manually, what I want you to do is use the assistant and ask it to help you. And so if you ever have a problem with your workflow and you think, why was my email empty? Why didn't I have anything? Just go to the email, go to the assistant and say, I tested this and I have no links to LinkedIn posts in my email. Can you make sure that the best LinkedIn posts get into the email? Say something in natural language, just like you'd say it to a person or just like the comment you'd make in this chat. And then you can ask the AI agent to reevaluate your workflow and improve it. So you can see Pietro is framing the question now.
Yeah, it's very simple. Again, you can access the assistant by clicking on this button up here, the color button. And I'm telling I tested this and I have no links to LinkedIn post in my email. Can you add the best post in the final email sent to myself? Let's see.
And what this should do, hopefully the demo will work, is it'll look back at your AI step. It'll see that the output of that AI step is not included in the email body, and it will do it for you. So do you see now in step 6 where it says list each items? It basically replicated exactly what Pietro had done manually.
Which means I did it good, eh?
Yeah, you did it well. Yeah, exactly. And so if you ever find yourself, it didn't quite work, and I don't remember how Pietro did that complicated looking thing with the data and the unroll, or I didn't quite follow it, just go to the assistant, tell it what's not working, and it should do a pretty good job of putting you on the right track.
Perfect. Any other question specifically about the workflow? Otherwise, I'll close this page. Okay. Take it. That's enough for this specific workflow. And again, you can make this as sophisticated as you want, right? With the assistant, you can also ask him to help improve it, as Jacob was saying, ask you to make it more sophisticated. Important thing is that you really understand what are the building blocks and how it works, right? Because the assistant does a good job, but I think it brings you to that 90%, right? It's important that you understand what the steps are, what the logic behind that. And then now all of the questions which you guys might have, I'm going to leave here. Both me and Jacob, if you want to go deeper in the topic, have courses. Jacob is more focused on theoretical, what are the basics of AI agents. My course is slightly more practical and for go-to people and for growth people, right? So if anyway interesting, you can scan the QR code and go check the curriculum. Just before we jump into the Q&A, you will also receive all of the recordings, the templates of the agent. I'll send a recap email in the next 2 hours, or at the latest, you'll have it tomorrow morning with the recording of this session, so you can rewatch it at your own pace. And yeah, I would say let's do a Q&A, whether they are on the specific agent or more generic one to Jacob or myself about what was the introduction, what are AI agents good at. Are there already questions, Jacob? Otherwise, I have one.
Yeah, I see a question from Gianni that I want to answer, which is, what is the difference between a workflow and an agent? Which is the question that probably comes up most frequently. I'd like to give 2 answers to this question. One is I'd like to give a more general theoretical answer. And then second, I'm going to give you a very practical answer in the context of building workflows like the one Pietro just built in Relay.app. So conceptually, you can think of delegating repeated work to your AI assistant to be either accomplished by a workflow or an agent. In general, in a workflow, you need to specify the flowchart of what steps are going to happen. First, we're going to look at this table. Then we're going to get the LinkedIn posts. Then we're going to extract the best ones. Then we're going to send me an email. You map out the entire flowchart like we did in this session. An agent typically means there is more autonomy and discretion that the AI has in how to achieve that goal. So you would tell the AI, I want to monitor my competitors on LinkedIn, and then it would figure out on the fly how to do. So that's kind of the general theoretical difference. Do you want more control and more structure, more of a flowchart, or do you want more of a prompt-based autonomous system? Now, in relay data, because this has been very hard for me and many others to understand, here's how we've done this in relay.app, which I think is actually the right way to think about this. You have a top-level team of AI agents. Think about AI agents like people in your company. For example, can you see my screen? I have a bunch of agents. I have a personal assistant, a teaching assistant, a sales assistant, an email marketer, a user researcher, a business analyst, a competitive analyst, and a LinkedIn assistant. These are my top-level AI employees that I can communicate with in text, just like I would a real employee. And then you can see that my agent, like my LinkedIn assistant, has several workflows. And so the way I recommend you think about it is the agent is the top-level identity of your AI coworker, and then the agent uses workflows to do its job. For example, you can see here, I have an AI research workflow that is very similar to the one we just built in this session. It gets some URLs, it looks up some posts, it writes a report, and sends it out over Slack. So this is a workflow that my agent does for me. If I want to give my LinkedIn assistant another responsibility, here's how I could do it. I could say every day, find out if Pietro has made any new posts and send me a Slack message to leave him a nice comment, for example. This is a reasonable thing I might ask my LinkedIn assistant agent to do. And what it's going to do is now turn that into a workflow. So I'm going to give it the instruction of what I want it to do, and then it is going to build a workflow for that. It's going to ask me some clarification questions. I'm going to say I should use LinkedIn. Personally, it's going to ask me for what his profile is. And so the way you should think about it is workflows are well-defined flowcharts or predictable, deterministic, step-by-step processes that an agent will use to fulfill its responsibilities. Does that make sense? Any other questions about that?
I see there are a couple in the chat.
Yeah, so Dwayne, the reason this is so tricky is because there's not a well-agreed-upon definition of an agent, every product is calling something different an agent, which is why it can be a little tricky to reason about what's an agent, what's a workflow in different products. So think at a high level, an agent is more flexible and autonomous. A workflow is more deterministic and structured, but that every product you come across might call a different thing a workflow or an agent. And so in relay.app specifically, the agent is the top level teammate-like container that you interact with in text, and then it uses workflows to fulfill its responsibilities. In some other products in our category, they call workflows agents. In some other products in our category, they call the assistant on the left the agent to build the workflow. So the definitions are still all over the place, but just think about deterministic flowchart versus more autonomy.
I see another question, unless there's something, maybe Jacob, we want to finish. There were a couple more questions here. Can a complete workflow be built with the system with natural language?
Yes, and this has been changing over time. I actually just switched in the last week from always starting with the assistant. And I consider myself a workflow building expert because this is a product I've worked on since its inception. But like I said, if you're building more complex workflows, the assistant may only get you 80 or 90% of the way there. So it's still important to understand the fundamentals of what a trigger is, what an action is, what an AI step is. But increasingly over time, I recommend starting just by giving instructions, double checking that the agent performed well, and then diving in and fixing the workflow if you need to. Oh, hey, Ruggiero, good to see you.
I see Jonas is asking a separate question. Really great tutorial. Is there an automatic way to find influencer creator to track? You could build this as well. In general, the best way, and there's nobody that will know the relevant influencer like yourself, right? You could have a keyboard query. This in general is a one-off activity, right? Unless you want to repeat the same activity because influencers change a lot in your niche. I wouldn't specifically build a workflow. I would maybe use, deep research on Gemini or something like Scrappy. You take an afternoon and you look for those 10 people which are really important in your niche. In general, consider that these you should most likely know. It's your competitor, the people who post a lot in your niche, the top influencer in your niche that tells you how people post. But for example, I built something which is relatively similar on Reddit. You could surface by keyword the most important subreddits for your niche, right? You could do it. Or another thing you could do is you could build a workflow so that it used deeper search on any of the major LLMs to surface those profiles which are the biggest, right? Me, I would recommend probably go to Favicon, which has the largest database of influencer, and look at Favicon, right? Or look for your competitors.
Can I make a quick point here
Yep.
about when to use an agent versus when to use a different kind of AI tool?
Absolutely.
Agents are proactive. They wake up automatically, either on a schedule or based on new information coming in. They're integrated deeply into your tools, and they do work for you repeatedly over time. So if you want to think about whether an agent is the right tool for the use case, once you have a list of people to monitor, the agent is the right tool to monitor them over time, because you want it to happen every week. You want it to look up those people, you want it to send a nice report, and you want it to get better over time. If you want to do a one-off search of who are the best LinkedIn profiles in my space, don't use an agent. Just go to ChatGPT, go to a chatbot and have a one-off conversation. And if you ever think, I only need to do this once ever, or I only need to do this once very rarely, an agent is probably not the right tool for the job. Probably you want to go to a more traditional AI chatbot interactive type interface. So what I recommend doing whenever you have a competitive research case is I first go to ChatGPT or Claude and say, who are the people I should be monitoring? Then I copy and paste that list into my agent and say, monitor these people, and then it will hook those up into the workflow.
Ma'am, I see another question. Is it possible to have a registration of this workflow? Yes, Elisa, you will receive it. I will get to it, I think, by tonight. In an hour, you should have it. I just need to trim the recording and then you'll receive it on your email. You'll also receive both mine and Jacob course, and where it's possible, there will also be discount code applied, because there are a couple of questions. On LinkedIn, could you reply automatically to new job application? Oh, Jacob, I leave this up to you. I didn't do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't believe that's possible without getting banned. I think this is one of the areas where they funnel you into their paid recruiter product for doing that.
Yeah, and this is what Jacob was telling at the beginning, and this is really the limitation of using, of not doing things manually that could get you banned, by the way. You are bound by what the platform wants you to have access to, right? So, for example, LinkedIn doesn't want you to, send messages, right? Because it's not in their term and condition. So Relay is naturally not able to give you that feature, because it will get your profile banned, their profile banned, and everybody would be unhappy, right? So in general, what you see here is on Relay is also what is possible legally. If there's someone who does it against term and condition, sure, there will always be someone, right?
Yeah, and there are absolutely tools that can automate direct messages and connection requests. You probably heard of some of them, Phantom Buster, Trigify. I'm not going to say blanket, don't use them. I just want to say there's risk. There's risk. Research them carefully before you use them, because if your LinkedIn profile is as important to you as my LinkedIn profile is to me, then it's really bad if it gets shut down.
Any last minute question? I don't know, probably Jacob has to jump. I think it was a great workshop. I hope you guys
thank
all
you,
have a great
Pietro.
time.
Really awesome talk. Thank you all for joining, and hope to see you all soon in the course, or we do these sessions a lot together. So keep an eye out for future ones.
I'll send you the recording, the summary, the discount codes, everything in the email. So if you just take a look on your email in the next 2 days and you receive everything, okay? Bye, guys. Great one. Bye-bye.